It's almost done. Scratch and post. Took a while. Many layers of glue, rug, staples. But the tree has got a new coat of bark, I guess. Even the door I fixed. Had to put the hinges on the other side, though, because there wasn't enough wood left when they pulled the door apart to attach it with, so. It's hard to remember. What, I don't know, what it used to be like here. It used to be like way more optimistic. Somebody must be matching their grant funding or something. Used to be a lot more optimistic. Just, playful, I guess. Just my companion animals and I just kind of enjoying each other's company around the house all day. Kind of distracting. I probably couldn't sit and do a video still like this. I would be without, someone jumping in and out of screen like every 5 minutes. Not even 5 minutes, like every 5 seconds. And we loved it. It was crazy. Well, let's take you back to. I'm doing a video in 2019, the beginning of 2019, would end up being the worst year of my life. I didn't know that yet. We had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas, I had the best Christmas gift that year. Madeline was pregnant again. I suspected she might be. And I began feeding her, vitamins, and she was fattening her up. And just the mood, we had such a great Christmas. We had, all the stockings were full. Every year I get all the cats gets a Christmas stocking, and I fill it with cat treats and catnip and cat toys, and they are like filled to the brim. And I usually get Walmart has this big giant, I don't know, like stocking with 100 toys in it, and I usually get like 5 of those. And they split up all the toys, and each stocking gets a really decent amount of toys. And usually I'll get like an individual toy and kind of like all-purpose, like balls and I don't know, bells and things with bells on them and mice, like those are kind of standard. So everybody gets like so many mice, so many balls, so many bells. It's a big deal. Christmas is a big deal with me and these cats. And my parents are older, we don't open gifts, it's not, it's been a while since we really celebrated with presents. And I don't really, I don't have children myself, so, this Christmas ritual was like a really big deal, I went all out. I stuffed their stockings, I gave them everything I had. I got all the vitamin milk and prepared for Madeline's litter. We were 15 to the colony at that point. And I didn't know how many she was going to have. We were, unsure. 2 could be really troublesome for her size. So, I felt around, and it felt like 3, So, I just prepared. Sometime around, it was March 3rd. She was really getting fat at that point. And I didn't want to jinx it either. I continued to feed her and continued to give her prenatal care. But I didn't they were treating her, she was eating 3 times her normal amount, which is kind of impossible because she would always eat twice as much with the TMJ. She felt like she had to put forth at least 3 to 4 times the same effort as most cats, just to get the same amount of food anyway. So, and then she started eating 3 times that amount. And she was maintaining a healthy weight. She looked good. And it was very important for me. Madeline was, she always communicated with me, and I always communicated with her, and we were very good both verbally, with verbal commands and nonverbal, symbols, patting, and she'd jump, she would jump on my shoulder, she'd jump on my leg, jump to my shoulder, jump back to my leg, up, down. Certain commands she's gotten very good with over the years. And so throughout the pregnancy, this is really important to me that I would feel around, her belly, and, I would all naturally, like, I'd try to communicate with the young, say, hi, babies, and they would kick, and they would get very excited and say hi back to me. And I always told Madeline that if anything, you felt like anything was going wrong, like in the belly, if she felt like, things weren't right or she was hurt, to meow and tell me. She has a lot of vocalizations that are different from the other cats because her jaw is, kind of stuck with the TMJ. She has to feed differently. She has to groom differently. And throughout her lifetime, we developed, I guess our own language, She communicates with me differently. So, the pregnancy was no exception. She was to give me this signal. It's a certain noise she makes. I know it. I wish I had her here to record it because I could show you the difference between a happy vocalization of Madeline's and a, painful or I'm in pain or something's wrong vocalization of hers. I know the difference in these. Not everyone does. And I told her throughout the pregnancy that if she, was encountering like pain or difficulty in the pregnancy to make those noises, and to, let me know if she felt also that it was going okay. She felt okay, everything felt normal, because she knew she had miscarried before. This cat knew, when something was going wrong, too. So, and she had purred and purred, and she was happy about these babies, about this pregnancy. Nervous, like any mother that had miscarried before would be, sure, but happy. And I made sure every day checking this cat, like every single day, that she would say, you all right? Everything feel all right? And she would purr. She would let me know. And she still jumped on my shoulder throughout the pregnancy. So I went from having one extra skull on my shoulder, one extra head, neck down, body, and an extra body that kind of rested around my head, to having 4 extra bodies that used to sit right on my shoulder every day. And I was, I was, I was pretty, I think you could hear something crack in my neck just then. But, it was just kind of like par for the course, I guess. And I did it, gleefully. Just, that's the way it went. And things went well. Things went very well throughout the pregnancy. Again, I was a little disappointed because none of my females, except maybe I think Miranda, who was getting quite, she was like, she's with me 8 years at that point. So, almost like about 7.5. And she was older when I got her, so if she had had litters, like, it was before she went into the shelter where I got her from, she might have had a litter. I'm not sure. So, I think I was down to like maybe one cat that had had a litter, and the others were all younger, so, and the older generation had died as well. So, I was kind of concerned about that, with Madeline being a new mother, etc., just not knowing very much about caring for Jan. And, but she had a good mother outside that took care of her. And it's tough to get a mother cat to, like, take care of a TMJ cat, from what I've heard. And, good mothers, really good experienced mothers are usually the ones that keep the ones with the birth defects like alive the longest. So I was hoping maybe her maternal experiences would help her be, be a mother as well. And I got a call one day again from Rick. It's always something with Rick. Rick's a very transient person at that point. Um, we started hanging around just before the death of a mutual friend, and what was it, 2016, 2015, 2016, we started hanging around. And I worked at the movie theater in 2017, and I had like free movie passes, and he was homeless, and I had extra free movie passes, so sometimes we'd go out together and see movies, and, I'd bring food over for them, and this is, prior to my friend's death, and my friend passed, and, we went to the funeral together, and, etc. He's a very transient person at that point. And he knows a lot of different transient people. And it was about March 3rd of 2019. Yeah, and everything's going fine in my colony of 15. Nothing unusual. And March 3rd, I get a call from Rick out of the blue at night. He says, can you take a couple of cats for a friend who's homeless? She's in between houses. She only needs you for a couple of weeks. She's in a bad situation. The cats are in a bad situation. And I explained to her I have crates. I have other spare room. I have, I can quarantine from my own population. And she said, "Oh, great, it's only until I get a place like next month or something." So, and it was like, it was really like it was a snowstorm that night. It was supposed to be snowing. So even though it was snowing and it was last minute and I barely had any gas to get there and I barely had any money, I headed out in the snow to go meet Rick and this woman I didn't even know at the time, Denise Caldwell, at a Stoneham gas station to pick up her two cats that were supposed to just stay with us a brief time. And I told her right out front, I said, I have a bunch of them. I said, I have a bunch of them. They're a great group. They're very mellow, some of them are very small. Some of them are very old. And, she said, oh, mine's a mother-son set, and she's very old and elderly and sick. And he's very young and big. And I'm like, okay, I have some males that are very large. I have some, well, actually, a lot of my older ones, but I still had Boo Boo and Moochie. They were older, so, not all of my older ones had passed. So I said, okay, it's only for a couple of weeks, and it was like 2 weeks before my 49th birthday, actually. So I headed out in a snowstorm to meet Rick and Denise and to pick up Tiger and Jasmine, two of her cats. Now, when I got Tiger home, we had a cat named Tyler. So I was calling him Tiger. And all my cats were like looking around, where's Tyler? Where's Tyler? Why are you mentioning Tyler? Especially Tyler's mate, Miranda. Like, she was the one that was really disturbed by hearing this. Like, it was just too confusing, I think, hearing this old sound, familiar sound. And maybe Casey, too. He's a little hard of hearing. He's a little older and dementia. So to avoid confusion, I told Tiger that for the duration of time that you are here, I'm going to call you Christopher instead of Tiger. We know that your name is Tiger, But I'm gonna call you Christopher because my kitties are old and they think that I'm calling you Tyler, and it's really confusing Casey because he's Casey's color, but he sounds like to some of them like Tyler's name, so it's really confusing. So I told Tiger, and Tiger just purred like Tiger purred. He actually, and for the duration, I called him Christopher. So it was Christopher and Jasmine that came to live with me on March 3rd, 2019. And sadly, Jasmine was really in like rougher shape than even I or Denise knew. And apparently, Denise had taken them out of a place before really looking at them. I mean, from what I could gather, she just kind of stuffed them in a carrier, put them in a van, called me up with Rick, and came to meet me. And when I got Jasmine home, she was in rough shape. She was very old. She needed food. She needed attention. She needed grooming. She had a bit of, fleas, a little bit, I cleaned her ears, I tidied her up. But she was very, very old. And it's hard to tell, like, how old and how infirm all the time. They do hide it. They do get nervous in new environments. They do tend to, like, act like everything's all right. Cats do that. And a lot of times cats, will look like they're fine eating and up to the last minute. And then, the next day just drop dead out of the blue. Sure enough, it was my birthday, my 49th birthday, and Jasmine passed away. I had to call Rick in Saugus, and Denise was there, and I told her I would come down with Christopher, and she's like, "Who's Christopher?" She gets all upset. I'm like, "Oh," and I forgot, I'm like, "Oh, we're calling him Christopher because my cats think he's Tyler instead of Tiger," and I'm trying to explain to her why, I said, he knows his name's Tiger, blah, blah, blah. She gets all defensive, and she's probably upset because of Jasmine, as it is, and I said, to tell you the truth, she was eating fine. She got a little sick the night before, and she hadn't eaten. I noticed when I gave her a little like crate to sleep in, so she could kind of be off to herself. And she had her own bowl, her own box in the crate. She had soiled herself. She had gotten really incontinent, overnight. All of a sudden, wouldn't eat, and it progressed fairly quickly. Called her up that day, even though it was my birthday. I really didn't have plans other than hanging out with these guys on my birthday anyway, but, and it snows in March, there's not much to do. So, I went down to Saugus, I met her, I tried to wrap up her remains, I tried to clean, the feces that had leaked out, from her body, somewhat, wrap her somewhat, decently, somewhat airtight, maybe a little, papoose type wrapping with some fabric that I had around the house. Put her neatly in a box and brought her back to Saugus with, so that she could arrange for, burying her remains, whatever she was going to do. She mentioned she had a spot, like a kind of a woodsy spot by the beach that she was thinking about burying her. And it was just sad, again, it was like a snowy wintry night. Rick was still living in Saugus and with David and Scott and fighting with them. And I don't know if he's openly fighting with them at that point or like, telling me and Denise how upset he is with them and then getting along with them and then, having it come to a head later on. I don't know. I don't know how that's transpired. Either way, it was before he had left the house under some who knows what circumstances. And I think it might have been before his van, if he's meeting me in Stoneham, but he's not meeting me at that time. I'm going to meet him in Saugus. So, I can only assume that maybe his van has caught fire at that point because sometime during the interim, between the time I had gotten a van catches fire, maybe, I don't know. It catches fire around that time, and I can't remember when. I don't know if that's the reason why he's not meeting me in the van, or someone else has a van. I don't know, or if it broke down. Who only knows why he's not meeting me in Stoneham again when it's time to pick up Jasmine's remains, but that's yet another mystery. So, you know, and I return home. I take Tiger, Christopher, along with me to visit Denise in Rick's house with David and Scott and Barbara. And I visit for a couple of hours. I don't really stay long because, it's a long drive home to New Hampshire. So, I stay for a little while. It's kind of awkward because she's going through her grieving process, and I'm going through my own grieving process, I guess, for my birthday. And, it's just an awkward birthday in general, I guess. How I spent my birthday there, yeah. And I returned the remains. Me and Christopher, she was happy to see Christopher. She seemed, pleased. I was trying to explain to her the Christopher situation. She seemed a little put off, but didn't say anything to me. And, so me and Christopher got back in the car and went back to New Hampshire. And, even though, I thought by the end of the month she'd be in a new place, she was still obviously like homeless and without a place. So she visited with him, and then she left with Jasmine's remains, and I left with Christopher back home, which was very sad, and in a way the group was very, I don't know, they were a bit traumatized by Jasmine's departure. They didn't know her very long, but it's always a sad occasion for them. But they were very supportive for Christopher, I think, because he wasn't alone. He at least had them, he had other friends to keep him company, other friends that had lost their mom or their, like Madeline had just lost King. So I'm sure Christopher was interested in comforting him after that loss too, just being there for him as a friend, because she had lost, our big guy King earlier, the previous year. So, there was a lot going on there that year. We were still expecting these babies were on the way. I never dreamed that Christopher would still be there when the babies were born. And, in a way, I'm kind of glad, because Christopher was the product of a kitten mill, and Jasmine was the related color of Breeze's color being exploited by those interests earlier. Jasmine could have been a relative of Pumbaa. Pumbaa's behavior was also an outgrowth of that earlier trend in the cat breeding business in general. And Denise did have contacts with some of the states that are known to have the breeders of Breeze's breed. So, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot. It's like a feline soap opera in a way, if you go back and look at some of the trends and the breeding trends, and just those two particular breeds or those two particular colors where they intersect is very, very interesting to me. It's kind of a personal struggle too right now. Trying to get that back into perspective, back into the the familial order that it should be in.